I said yes to the cruelest man I'd ever met, and it saved my father's farm. It shouldn't have worked out that way. Nothing in my life should have led me to Dominic Blackwell's freezing office on that rainy Tuesday, with my muddy boots staining the Persian rug that probably cost more than our entire harvest. But there I was, drenched, desperate, holding the final eviction notice like it was a winning lottery ticket. Miss Clementine Novak. He said my name like someone chewing glass. You have exactly 3 minutes to convince me not to demolish your father's pathetic farm and build my resort. 3 minutes. 23 years of memories, my father's sweat, the afternoons picking strawberries with my mother before she passed. Everything reduced to 180 seconds. I'll work for you, I blurted out, surprising myself. For free. For as long as you need. In exchange, you postpone the purchase for 1 year. Dominic Blackwell leaned back in his leather chair, his gray eyes assessing me like I was cattle at an auction. At 32, he was everything the tabloids said. Absurdly handsome, obscenely rich, and notoriously ruthless. He had the kind of jawline that should be illegal, and the kind of reputation that made sensible people cross the street. Interesting, he smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. But I don't need another secretary. You need a wife. The words came out before my brain could veto them. I had read it in the town's gossip magazine. Dominic Blackwell needed to marry within 6 months to receive his grandfather's astronomical inheritance, and he was having trouble finding candidates willing to endure his temperament. The silence that followed was deafening. Then he laughed, a short, dry, dangerous laugh. Are you proposing to me, Miss Novak? I'm proposing a business arrangement, Mr. Blackwell. And that's how my life turned upside down. Dominic Blackwell didn't say yes immediately, which somehow made it worse. He stood up, all 6 feet 3 inches of tailored suit and controlled menace, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Manhattan. From 40 stories up, the city looked like a toy set. I wondered if that's how he saw people too. Tiny, movable, disposable. Let me understand this correctly, he said without turning around. You, a farmer's daughter from... Where was it again? Millbrook, upstate New York. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Millbrook, he repeated like it was a disease. You're offering to marry me, a complete stranger, to save a property that's worth... What? Maybe $200,000 on a generous day? 300,000, I corrected, then immediately regretted it. He turned, one eyebrow raised. My mistake. 300,000. I spend more than that on watches. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to step back. What makes you think you could possibly be what I need, Miss Novak? Because everyone else you've asked has said no. That landed. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Careful. You asked Madison Montgomery. She told Page 6 you had the emotional range of a tax audit. You asked Vivian St. Clair. She said she'd rather die alone than spend one dinner with you. You asked... I get it. He cut me off, but there was something different in his eyes now. Curiosity, maybe. Or the kind of interest a cat shows right before it kills a mouse. You did your homework. I can't afford not to. And your father? He's on board with you prostituting yourself for his farm? The word hit me like a slap, but I swallowed the anger. My father doesn't know I'm here. And this isn't prostitution, Mr. Blackwell. It's a business transaction. You need a wife for 6 months to claim your inheritance. I need time to save my home. We both get what we want. What I want, he said softly, dangerously, is a wife who can handle the sharks at Blackwell Industries board meetings, who knows which fork to use at a state dinner, who won't embarrass me in front of people who actually matter. You probably can't even spell etiquette. E-T-I-Q-U-E-T-T-E, I spelled out. And I may not know which fork to use, but I know how to learn. I'm a fast study, Mr. Blackwell. Teach me what I need to know, and I'll be whoever you need me to be. He studied me for a long moment, and I could practically see him calculating, weighing options, running scenarios. This was a man who built a billion-dollar empire before 35. Every decision was strategic. 6 months, he finally said. After I receive the inheritance, we divorce quietly. You get your year for the farm plus $200,000. My heart jumped. $200,000 could fix the irrigation system, repair the barns, maybe even hire help for Dad. Deal. I'm not finished. He moved to his desk, pressed a button. Miranda, bring the NDA and draft a marriage contract. Standard clauses plus specifications I'm about to dictate. He looked back at me. You'll sign a prenuptial agreement stating you have no claim to my assets. You'll move into my penthouse immediately. You'll attend all social functions as my wife and play the part convincingly. You'll take etiquette lessons, wardrobe consultations, speech coaching, whatever my team deems necessary to make you presentable. Each condition felt like a small cut. Presentable, as if I were a feral animal he was trying to domesticate. And you'll do it all with a smile, he continued, because the moment you complain, the moment you embarrass me, the moment you fail to meet my standards, the deal is off, and the bulldozers roll onto your father's land the next morning. Are we clear? I should have walked out. Any sane person would have. But I thought about Dad's hands, weathered and worn from 40 years of farming. I thought about Mom's strawberry patch, the one thing we'd kept exactly as she left it. I thought about losing the only home I'd ever known. Crystal clear, I said. But I have conditions too. He actually looked amused. You have conditions. No sleeping together, separate bedrooms, and you don't get to talk to me the way you just did, like I'm garbage, when we're alone. In public, I'll be your perfect wife. In private, you treat me like a human being. Anything else, princess? Stop calling me names. My name is Clementine. Your name, he said, moving closer until I could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that probably cost more than our monthly grocery bill, is whatever I decide it is. But fine, Clementine it is. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? I looked at his hand, perfectly manicured, probably never worked a day in actual labor. Then I looked at mine, calloused and rough, dirt still under my fingernails despite scrubbing them raw this morning. When I took his hand, it felt like making a deal with the devil. But maybe the devil was exactly what I needed. We have a deal, Mr. Blackwell. Dominic, he corrected, his grip firm and warm. If you're going to be my wife, you should probably use my first name. The word wife sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the office's aggressive air conditioning. What the hell had I just agreed to? The penthouse was obscene. That was the only word for it as I stood in the marble foyer, my single duffel bag looking like a sad joke against the backdrop of what could only be described as architectural pornography. Everything was white, black, or glass. Sharp edges everywhere. It looked like a place where happiness came to die. Your room is down the hall, last door on the left, Dominic said, already loosening his tie as he headed toward what I assumed was his own bedroom. Miranda will be here at 6 a.m. Sharp to begin your transformation. Don't be late. Transformation? I called after him. What am I, a pumpkin? He paused, turned back. For a second, just a second, I thought I saw his mouth twitch. More like a scarecrow. But we'll work with what we have. The door to his room closed with a decisive click before I could respond. I stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of what I'd done settle over me like a wet blanket. 45 minutes ago, I'd signed 17 pages of legal documents that basically said Dominic Blackwell owned me for the next 6 months. My signature had felt like selling my soul, except at least Faust got magical powers. All I got was a room down the hall from a man who looked at me like I was a particularly annoying stain on his Prada shoes. The bedroom, my bedroom I had to remind myself, was bigger than our entire farmhouse living room. The bed could sleep 6 people comfortably. There was a chandelier, an actual chandelier, in a bedroom. The closet was a walk-in the size of our chicken coop, currently empty except for a note on expensive cardstock. Wardrobe fitting tomorrow, 2 p.m. Burn whatever you brought with you. M. I looked down at my flannel shirt and jeans. They smelled like home, hay and strawberries and morning dew, like everything I was about to lose if I screwed this up. Not a chance, I muttered, carefully folding the flannel and placing it in the drawer. I tried to sleep, but the bed was too soft, the sheets too smooth, the silence too complete. Back home I could hear crickets, the occasional cow, Dad snoring through the thin walls. Here, 43 floors up, there was nothing but the artificial hum of climate control and my own racing thoughts. At 2 a.m., I gave up and padded to the kitchen in my oversized Millbrook Farmers Market t-shirt and shorts. Maybe some warm milk would help, assuming a man like Dominic Blackwell actually kept something as pedestrian as milk in his designer refrigerator. I was halfway through microwaving a mug when the lights blazed on. "What are you doing?" I spun around, nearly dropping the mug. Dominic stood in the doorway in nothing but black pajama pants, his hair messed up in a way that should have made him look less intimidating, but somehow didn't. His chest was bare, and I discovered with dismay that apparently he also had an obscenely perfect body to go with the obscene apartment. "Making warm milk," I managed. "Couldn't sleep." "So you decided to destroy my kitchen?" I looked around. There was a small puddle of milk on the counter where I'd spilled a bit. "I'll clean it up. You've already violated rule number 7 of the contract. No using the kitchen without staff supervision." "That's a ridiculous rule." "It's my kitchen." "It's a kitchen. Kitchens are meant to be used." The exhaustion and stress of the day finally caught up with me. "You know what? Never mind. I'll just go back to my gilded cage and stare at the ceiling some more." I moved to push past him, but he caught my arm. His grip was gentle, which surprised me more than if he'd been rough. "Why warm milk?" The question was so unexpected that I answered honestly. "My mom used to make it for me when I couldn't sleep. She'd add a tiny bit of honey and cinnamon." I pulled my arm free. "But I'm sure that's too common for your sophisticated palate." I expected him to make some cutting remark. Instead, he moved to the cabinet and pulled out a small jar. My grandmother did the same thing. I watched, stunned, as Dominic Blackwell, billionaire, corporate shark, the man who reportedly made a competitor cry during a merger negotiation, carefully measured honey into my mug and sprinkled cinnamon on top. "Thank you," I said quietly. He nodded once, then opened the fridge and pulled out a beer. We stood there in the kitchen, an odd pair, me in my farm t-shirt with warm milk, him shirtless with imported beer, and for a moment the hostility eased. "Why do you do it?" I asked. "Do what?" "Act like you're made of ice. Earlier today you were cruel. Just now you made me warm milk. Which one is the real you?" He took a long drink of his beer, and when he met my eyes, there was something raw there. Something that looked almost like loneliness. "The cruel one keeps me alive in this world, Clementine. The other one," he shrugged, "the other one is a liability. Or maybe," I said softly, "he's the only part worth knowing." Something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe, or something more dangerous. For a heartbeat, the space between us felt charged, electric. Then he stepped back, and the walls came up again. "Get some sleep. Miranda doesn't tolerate tardiness." He headed toward his room, then paused. "And Clementine, that shirt stays? Anyone asks, you're wearing designer loungewear. It says Millbrook Farmers Market in neon letters. Then I guess my wife has quirky taste." He disappeared down the hall, leaving me alone with my warm milk and the startling realization that somewhere under all that ice, Dominic Blackwell might actually be human. Which meant I was in much more trouble than I thought. Because hating him would have been so much easier than whatever this was starting to become. Miranda Castellanos arrived at exactly 6 a.m. with the energy of a 5-star general preparing for war and the warmth of a glacier. "Stand," she commanded, circling me like a shark. I was still in my pajamas, clutching my coffee like a security blanket. Hmm. Well, at least you're tall. We can work with tall. Good morning to you, too, I muttered. Rule 1. Sarcasm is unbecoming. She pulled out an iPad and started typing. We have 17 days until the engagement announcement at the Ashford Charity Gala. That gives us barely enough time to make you presentable. There was that word again. Presentable. I'm a person, not a renovation project. Miranda's smile could have frozen hell. Darling, you're whatever Mr. Blackwell pays me to make you. Now, strip. The stylist needs measurements. The next 6 hours were a blur of humiliation disguised as haute couture. I was poked, prodded, measured, and criticized by an army of people whose names I immediately forgot. My eyebrows were tragic. My hair was a cry for help. My skin was surprisingly good, actually. Must be all that farm fresh air. The wardrobe consultant, a painfully thin man named Pierre, held up my flannel shirt like it was a dead rat. This is what you wore? In public? That shirt survived 3 winters and a barn fire. Show some respect. Pierre dropped it in a trash bag. Hey! I lunged for it, but Miranda blocked me. The old Clementine stays in Millbrook, she said firmly. The new Clementine wears Valentino. By noon, I was standing in front of a 3-way mirror, wearing a dress that cost more than my dad's tractor, and I barely recognized myself. The dress was beautiful. Emerald green, elegant, sophisticated. Everything I wasn't. I look like I'm playing dress-up, I said quietly. You look like a Blackwell, Miranda corrected. Then slightly softer. The dress is perfect, but you need to own it. Shoulders back, chin up. You're not apologizing for existing. Something in her tone made me look at her differently. Under all that ice, maybe there was something else. Did he make you go through this too? Miranda's expression flickered. Mr. Blackwell doesn't make anyone do anything. He simply presents options, and we choose wisely. She checked her watch. Etiquette lesson in 20 minutes. Change into something comfortable. The etiquette instructor, a 70-year-old former British ambassador named Constance Hartley, was surprisingly cool. She took one look at me and said, "Oh, good. You have spirit. The boring ones never last." Last what? The Blackwell treatment. His grandfather put him through the same thing when he was young. Made him into the ruthless businessman he is today. Pity, really. The boy had such a lovely laugh. I tried to imagine Dominic laughing, really laughing, not that cold, calculated sound he made, and failed. Lady Constance taught me which fork was for what. Apparently, there are forks for fish, meat, salad, and dessert, because God forbid we use the same fork twice. She taught me how to sit, back straight, ankles crossed, never legs, how to walk, glide, don't stomp, and how to make small talk, never religion, politics, or mention that you grew up milking cows. What if someone asks about my background? I asked. You're a private person. You prefer to focus on the present rather than dwell on the past. Deflect, smile, change the subject. You're not lying. You're simply maintaining mystery. She winked. Much more interesting than the truth, usually. By the time Dominic came home at 8 p.m., and I was exhausted, starving, and wearing the 14th outfit of the day, a simple but elegant cream-colored pantsuit that Pierre insisted was casual evening wear. Dominic stopped in the doorway of the living room, his briefcase in hand, and just stared. What? I asked defensively. Is there something wrong with it? No, he said slowly. It's perfect. The way he said it made my stomach do a weird flip. Well, don't get used to it. I still can't walk in heels without looking like a newborn deer. That got me the closest thing to a real smile I'd seen from him. Miranda sent me the schedule. I see you survived day 1. Barely. Did you know there are different spoons for soup and dessert? Why? Why do we need specialized spoons? Because society is built on unnecessary complications. He loosened his tie, and I noticed how tired he looked. Have you eaten? Miranda said the chef would prepare something, but I felt weird asking a stranger to cook for me, so I was just going to make a sandwich. You know you can't use the kitchen without supervision. That's still the dumbest rule in the contract. This time he definitely smiled. Come on, I'm starving, and I'm tired of eating alone. I followed him to the dining room, where he pressed a button and spoke into an intercom. Thomas, 2 of whatever you made for dinner. And make it quick. We sat at opposite ends of an absurdly long table. The silence was awkward until I said, "This is ridiculous. I can't even see you properly from here. It's a 12-person dining table. We're 2 people. It came with the apartment." I picked up my plate and moved to the chair next to him. There, much better. Dominic looked at me like I'd just suggested we eat on the floor. You can't just... Can't what? Sit where I want in my own temporary home? I met his eyes. You want me to play the perfect wife in public? Fine. But when it's just us, I'm not going to pretend I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. Deal with it. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, "You're going to be a nightmare, aren't you?" "Probably." I grinned. "But I'm your nightmare now." Dinner arrived, some kind of fancy chicken dish that tasted like heaven, and we ate in companionable silence until Dominic said, "Miranda said you did well today." Miranda said that? She said you were surprisingly resilient and only cried once. I didn't cry. That's what I told her. He cut his chicken with precision. She also said you tried to save your flannel shirt from the trash. I waited for the mockery, but his expression was neutral. That shirt belonged to my mom, I said quietly. She wore it when she worked the fields. It still smells like her perfume a little bit. I know it's stupid, but it's not stupid. Dominic set down his fork. I have my grandfather's pocket watch. It doesn't work, hasn't for 20 years. I keep it in my desk drawer. The vulnerability in that admission made my chest tight. The man who made you drink warm milk with honey, I guessed. The only person who ever gave a damn about me. He picked up his wine glass. He died right after I built Blackwell Industries. Never got to see what I became. Maybe that's for the best, I said without thinking. Because what you became is kind of an asshole. I expected anger. Instead, Dominic laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. For a moment, I saw what he must have looked like before the world taught him to build walls. You really don't have a filter, do you? Not really. No. It's probably going to get us both in trouble. Probably, he agreed, but it might also make this bearable. Our eyes met, and something passed between us. An understanding, maybe. Or the beginning of something more dangerous. A truce. Or maybe, I thought with a mix of excitement and terror, the start of an actual friendship. Either way, I was definitely not hating him as much as I should. And that was a problem. You're stepping on my feet. Because you keep moving them. That's how dancing works, Clementine. It was day 12 of my transformation, and Dominic had decided to personally oversee my dance lessons. Big mistake. Huge. The professional instructor had fled an hour ago after I accidentally elbowed him in the face during a spin. Now it was just me, Dominic, and a sound system playing a waltz in the obscenely large living room that apparently doubled as a ballroom when needed. Because of course it did. Left foot back, right foot side, close together, he instructed, his hand firm on my waist. It's not complicated. Easy for you to say. You probably waltzed out of the womb. My grandfather started teaching me when I was 6. I hated every second of it. Why? Because I wanted to play baseball like normal kids. Instead, I learned to dance with girls who smelled like mothballs and disappointment. He spun me, and this time I didn't trip. But he said powerful men need to know how to lead, on the dance floor and everywhere else. Sounds exhausting. It is. His gray eyes met mine, and I realized how close we were. Close enough that I could see the tiny scar above his left eyebrow, smell his cologne, feel the warmth radiating from him. But it works. Does it? I challenged. Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty lonely. His jaw tightened. We're not talking about this. Why not? We're going to be fake married. Might as well get to know each other. This is a business arrangement, not a therapy session. Can't it be both? He spun me out, then pulled me back, harder than necessary. I crashed against his chest, and his arm locked around my waist to steady me. We froze, breathing hard, bodies pressed together. You're infuriating, he said, but his voice was rough. You're scared, I countered. Of what? Of actually liking me. The music swelled around us, but we weren't dancing anymore. We were just standing there, caught in something neither of us knew how to name. His hand moved from my waist to the small of my back, fingers spreading, and I felt that touch everywhere. The gala is in 5 days, he said finally, stepping back. Professional distance restored. You need to be perfect. I'll never be perfect. No, he agreed, and something in his expression softened. But you might be something better. Before I could ask what that meant, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, frowned, and I watched his entire demeanor shift. The walls came up, the warmth disappeared, and suddenly he was all business again. I have a call. Practice the steps. Miranda will be here at 4 for your final wardrobe fitting. He was already walking away. Dominic? He paused at the doorway. Thank you. For teaching me. He nodded once, then disappeared, leaving me alone with the fading music and the phantom sensation of his hand on my back. 3 days later, I stood in front of the mirror in a dress that made me look like someone who belonged at a charity gala. It was midnight blue, elegant, with a neckline that was daring without being scandalous. My hair was swept up, my makeup was flawless, and I was wearing actual diamonds. Borrowed diamonds, but still. You look beautiful, Miranda said, and for once there was no criticism in her voice. I look like a stranger. You look like Mrs. Blackwell. She adjusted my necklace. Remember everything Lady Constance taught you. Smile, but not too much. Be interested, but not desperate. And whatever you do, don't mention the farm. I know. I took a deep breath. Miranda, what if I screw this up? Then Mr. Blackwell will handle it. That's what he does. She met my eyes in the mirror. But between you and me, I don't think you will. You're tougher than you look. Is that a compliment? Don't get used to it. The penthouse door opened, and my heart stopped. Dominic Blackwell in jeans and a t-shirt was dangerous. Dominic Blackwell in a tuxedo should be illegal. He looked like every James Bond fantasy ever made, all sharp lines and controlled power and devastating handsomeness. Our eyes met, and I watched something flicker across his face. Surprise, appreciation, something darker and more intense. You clean up well, I managed. So do you. He crossed to me, pulled a small box from his pocket. I need you to wear this tonight. Inside was a ring. Not just any ring. An emerald-cut diamond that probably cost more than my entire existence, surrounded by smaller diamonds that caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. This is the engagement ring? It was my grandmother's. He took it out, held it up. Give me your hand. I extended my left hand, trying not to shake. When he slid the ring onto my finger, the moment felt too real, too significant. This was supposed to be fake, a business arrangement. So why did my chest feel tight? Perfect fit, he said quietly, still holding my hand. How did you know my size? Miranda told me, but he didn't let go. Clementine, tonight is important. There will be people trying to find cracks in our story, journalists looking for scandal, business rivals hoping I'll fail. I need you to be perfect, I know. You've mentioned it about 100 times. I was going to say I need you to trust me. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, just once. Things might get intense. Just follow my lead, and we'll get through it together. Together. Such a simple word, but the way he said it made it sound like a promise. Okay, I agreed. In the car ride to the gala, Dominic briefed me on key people I'd meet. That's Senator Richards. He's considering me for a government contract. His wife, Patricia, runs the planning committee. Compliment her work. Marcus Chen is my biggest competitor. He'll try to rattle you. Don't engage. Do you always prepare for parties like you're going to war? When your life is built on perception, every party is a war. That sounds exhausting. It is. He looked out the window at Manhattan, glittering in the darkness. But it's the life I chose. Or the life that was chosen for you. He turned to me, something vulnerable in his expression. You see too much. Maybe you're just used to people who don't bother to look. The car pulled up to the Plaza Hotel, and suddenly there were cameras everywhere, flashing like lightning. My hand found Dominic's automatically squeezing tight. "Showtime," he murmured. Then louder, "Ready, darling." The endearment should have sounded fake, but something in the way he said it made my stomach flip. As I'll ever be. He stepped out first, then extended his hand to help me out. The moment my heels hit the red carpet, the questions started. "Mr. Blackwell, who's your date? Is this the mysterious fiancé? When's the wedding?" Dominic's arm slid around my waist, pulling me close. "Gentlemen, ladies, I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Clementine Novak, and that's all you're getting tonight." He guided me forward, and I plastered on the smile Miranda had taught me, warm but mysterious, interested but not too eager. We posed for exactly 3 photos before he whisked me inside. "That wasn't so bad," I said. "That was the easy part." He took 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter, handed me one. The real challenge is inside. The ballroom was straight out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, elegant decorations, people dripping with wealth and confidence. I suddenly felt like Dorothy landing in Oz, except this Oz was full of sharks in designer clothing. "Breathe," Dominic whispered in my ear. "You belong here." "I really don't." "Tonight you do, because you're with me." His hand settled on the small of my back again, that same possessive touch from our dance lesson, and I felt steadier. "Let's go meet some people who desperately need our money." Despite everything, I laughed. And when Dominic smiled at me, a real smile, not his practiced society smile, I realized with a jolt of terror that I was in serious trouble. Because somewhere between the warm milk and the dance lessons and the way he looked at me like I was the only real thing in a room full of beautiful fakes, I'd started to fall for my fake fiancé. And that wasn't part of the contract at all. The evening was going surprisingly well until Vivienne St. Clair decided to destroy me. She appeared like a vision in red silk, her blonde hair perfect, her smile sharp as a knife. This was the woman who'd told the press she'd rather die alone than date Dominic. Looking at her now, all elegance and poise, I understood why he'd asked her first. "Dominic, darling," she purred, air-kissing near his cheeks. "I heard the most amusing rumor that you'd gotten engaged." Her eyes slid to me like a snake sizing up prey. I simply had to see for myself. "Vivienne," Dominic's voice was cold. "This is my fiancée, Clementine Novak." "Novak," she repeated, tasting the name. "How quaint. I don't believe I know that family. Are you from Connecticut? The Hamptons?" "Upstate New York," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Millbrook." "Millbrook." Her laugh was like breaking glass. "How wonderfully rustic. You must tell me, how did you two meet? I'm simply dying to know." The word "dying" sounded like a threat. "It's a private matter," Dominic said, his hand tightening on my waist. "Oh, but Dominic, you know there are no private matters in our world." Vivian's smile widened. "I did a teensy bit of research. Your father owns a farm, doesn't he, Clementine? How sweet. Though I heard it's in foreclosure." She paused for effect. "Tell me, is that how you met? Did Dominic buy your family's land? Or did you offer yourself as part of the deal?" The room seemed to tilt. Around us, conversations quieted. People were watching, waiting to see what would happen. This was exactly what Dominic had warned me about. Someone trying to crack our story, to humiliate me, to make him look weak for choosing me. I felt my face flush, anger and shame mixing together. But before I could respond, Dominic spoke, and his voice could have frozen hell. "Careful, Vivian. I'm just curious." "No." He stepped forward, and something in his posture made Vivian actually step back. "You're not curious. You're bitter, because I chose someone with actual substance over someone who measures worth in last names and trust funds." His eyes were glacial. "Clementine comes from a family that knows the meaning of hard work, loyalty, and integrity. 3 things you wouldn't recognize if they were gift-wrapped in Cartier." "Dominic, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." He pulled me closer, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "And let me make something crystal clear to everyone here. Clementine is going to be my wife. She belongs at my side. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly." He paused. "Though I should warn you, I don't handle disrespect toward the people I care about very well." The people I care about. Those words hit me harder than anything Vivian had said. Vivian's composure cracked. "You'll regret this, Dominic. The only thing I regret is wasting time talking to you. Enjoy the rest of your evening." He guided me away, his hand steady on my back, while whispers erupted behind us. I didn't breathe properly until we reached the balcony outside. The night air was cool against my heated face. My hands were shaking. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have handled that better. I should have—" "You handled it perfectly." Dominic turned me to face him, his hands on my shoulders. "You didn't let her see you break. That takes strength." I wanted to punch her in her perfect face. That surprised a laugh out of him, a real one. So did I. "Why did you defend me like that?" The question came out smaller than I intended. In front of everyone? His expression shifted, became something softer, more vulnerable. "Because she was wrong. About all of it." His hand came up, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You're not some gold digger or opportunist. You're a woman trying to save her family's legacy. There's no shame in that." "But our arrangement, it's not real. Why risk your reputation for something fake?" "Maybe," he said quietly, his thumb tracing along my jawline. "It doesn't feel as fake as it should." My breath caught. We were standing too close, the Manhattan skyline glittering behind him, the sounds of the party muted through the glass doors. His eyes dropped to my lips, and I knew he was going to kiss me. And God help me, I wanted him to. "Dominic, there you are!" A booming voice shattered the moment. An older man in an expensive suit stepped onto the balcony, completely oblivious to what he'd interrupted. "Dominic, my boy, and this must be the famous fiancé." Dominic stepped back, professional mask sliding into place. "Senator Richards, I was hoping to speak with you tonight." The next hour was a blur of introductions and small talk. I played my part perfectly, smiled at the right times, made appropriate conversation, laughed at terrible jokes, all while feeling Dominic's presence beside me like electricity, hyper-aware of every time our hands brushed or his arm wrapped around my waist. By the time we got back to the penthouse, I was exhausted, my feet killing me in the designer heels, my face sore from smiling. I kicked off the shoes the moment we crossed the threshold and groaned in relief. Remind me why women torture themselves like this? Because apparently suffering equals beauty. Dominic loosened his bow tie, and the simple action shouldn't have been as attractive as it was. "You did well tonight. Better than well. You were incredible. Even when I almost dumped champagne on that guy who asked if I knew what a stock portfolio was. Especially then. The restraint was admirable." He poured 2 glasses of scotch from the bar, handed me one. "To surviving our first public appearance." "To not committing murder," I countered, and we clinked glasses. The scotch burned going down, but it was a good burn. We stood there in the living room, still in our formal wear, and something hung in the air between us. Unfinished business from the balcony. "What you said to Vivian," I started. Did you mean it? Which part? The part about me having substance, about caring. Dominic set down his glass, and when he looked at me, there was no mask, no walls, just him, raw and real and terrifying. Every word, he said. You walked into my office with mud on your boots and fire in your eyes, and you've been driving me crazy ever since. He moved closer. You don't fit in my world, Clementine. You make terrible jokes. You can't dance. You wear t-shirts that say, Farmer's Market to bed. Another step. And somehow you've become the most real thing in my life. My heart was thundering. This wasn't supposed to happen. I know. We had rules, boundaries. I know. We're supposed to be fake. I know. He was right in front of me now, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. But I can't stop thinking about you, about what you said that first night, about the cruel version of me versus the real one. You make me want to be the real one. Dominic. His name came out like a prayer. Tell me to stop, he whispered. Tell me this is still just business, and I'll walk away. We'll go back to the contract, the rules, the safe distance. I should have said it. Should have protected both of us from the inevitable crash. But standing there in my borrowed diamonds and designer dress, looking at a man who'd just defended me in front of Manhattan's elite, who made me warm milk and taught me to dance and looked at me like I was worth something, I couldn't. I can't tell you to stop, I admitted. Because I don't want you to. The kiss was inevitable. His hands framed my face, gentle despite the intensity in his eyes, giving me one last chance to pull away. I didn't. When his lips met mine, the whole world disappeared. There was only him, his mouth, his hands sliding into my hair, the way he kissed me like I was air and he'd been drowning. I grabbed his jacket, pulling him closer, and his arms wrapped around me, lifting me slightly off my feet. This wasn't part of the contract. This wasn't fake or pretend or business. This was real and terrifying and absolutely perfect. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic pressed his forehead to mine. We're in trouble, he said. Big trouble, I agreed. What do we do now? I pulled back enough to meet his eyes, saw my own confusion and wonder reflected there. I have no idea, but maybe. I touched his face, feeling the slight stubble under my palm. Maybe we figure it out together? Together, he repeated, and kissed me again. Softer this time, sweeter, like a promise neither of us knew if we could keep. But God, we were going to try. 3 weeks of happiness. That's what I got before everything shattered. 3 weeks of stolen kisses in the morning before Miranda arrived. 3 weeks of Dominic teaching me about his world while I taught him how to laugh again. 3 weeks of falling deeper and deeper into something that felt too good to be real. Turns out my instincts were right. I found the documents by accident. Dominic had left his study door open while taking a call, and I'd gone in to leave him coffee, our new morning ritual. His desk was its usual organized chaos, but one folder caught my eye because it had my name on it. Novak Property, Acquisition Timeline. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were detailed plans. Architectural renderings of the luxury resort he'd mentioned that first day, construction schedules, profit projections, and there, in black and white, dated 2 days before I'd walked into his office. Acquisition to proceed as planned. Alternative strategy, personal leverage via family member. Alternative strategy, personal leverage, family member. I kept reading, each word a knife to the chest. There were notes in what I recognized as Dominic's handwriting. Daughter, Clementine Novak, 23, single, financially desperate. Possible angle for negotiation. My vision blurred. The coffee cup slipped from my fingers, shattering on the marble floor. He'd known. Before I ever walked into his office, he'd researched me, identified me as a possible angle. The marriage proposal I'd thought was my idea. He'd probably planned for it. Maybe even manipulated me into suggesting it. Clementine? Dominic appeared in the doorway, phone still in hand. His expression shifted from concern to understanding to something like fear when he saw the folder. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "That I was just another business transaction? That you played me from the beginning?" "No, it's not like that." He moved toward me, and I stepped back, glass crunching under my feet. "Don't." The word came out broken. "It's dated 2 days before I came to you. You knew who I was. You knew about my father's debt. You probably knew I'd be desperate enough to agree to anything." "I did my research, yes. I always do research." "Research?" I laughed, and it hurt. "Is that what we're calling manipulation now? You identified me as personal leverage, Dominic, like I was a tool, a resource to be exploited. That's not—" He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "Yes, I knew who you were. Yes, I'd identified you as someone who might be willing to negotiate, but the marriage proposal was your idea, Clementine. You walked into my office and offered, because you backed me into a corner. You made me desperate." The tears came now, hot and angry. "God, I'm so stupid. All of it. The warm milk, the dancing, the way you defended me at the gala, the kiss. It was all part of the strategy, wasn't it? Make the farm girl fall in love so she'd be easier to control. That's not true." His voice was rough, almost desperate. "What's between us is real." "Is it?" I held up the folder. "Because this says otherwise. This says I was always just part of your plan to get what you wanted." At first, maybe. The admission made me flinch. At first, yes. You were a convenient solution to 2 problems. But that changed. You changed everything. When? When did it change, Dominic? Before or after you got me to sign my life away for 6 months? Before or after I fell in love with you like an idiot? The words hung in the air between us. I hadn't meant to say them, but they were out now, raw and real, and completely humiliating. Dominic's expression cracked. "You love me. It doesn't matter." I was already moving, heading for the bedroom. None of it matters because it was all built on a lie. "Clementine, wait, no!" I spun around. "You want to know the worst part? I actually believed you. When you said I was the most real thing in your life, I believed you. When you kissed me, I thought it meant something. But you're right. You're the cruel one. That's who you really are. The other version? The one who makes warm milk and laughs at my jokes. He was just another strategy. That's not fair." "Fair?" My laugh was bitter. "You researched me like a hostile takeover and I'm being unfair. You know what's not fair? I trusted you. I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, someone like you could actually care about someone like me." I grabbed my phone, started throwing clothes into my duffel bag, the same one I'd arrived with. Dominic followed me, and I could see him struggling, trying to find the right words. "Where will you go?" "Home, where I should have stayed in the first place." "The contract, screw the contract." I zipped the bag with shaking hands. "Take the farm, build your resort. Congratulations, you win." "You always win, right? That's what people like you do." "People like me?" His voice went cold, defensive. "And what kind of person is that, Clementine? The kind who sees everything as a transaction. The kind who can't let anyone in because that might be a weakness. The kind who's so afraid of being human that he turns everything, including people, into business deals." I slung the bag over my shoulder. "Your grandfather would be disappointed." That landed. His face went white, and I felt a savage satisfaction mixed with immediate regret. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. I shouldn't have said that. "But you did." His walls were fully up now, the vulnerable man from last night completely gone. "You're right. I did research you. I did see you as a convenient solution. That's what I do. I identify problems and fix them efficiently." He straightened his tie, and I watched him transform back into the cold businessman who'd terrified me that first day. "But I didn't force you to agree. You made your choice, same as I made mine." "You're right. I headed for the door. And now, I'm making another one. I'm choosing to leave. And the farm? I paused at the threshold, not looking back. Do whatever you want with it. Clearly you were always going to anyway. Clementine. Goodbye, Dominic. I walked out before he could see me completely fall apart. The train back to Millbrook felt like moving through water. I sat by the window, watching Manhattan disappear behind me, and let myself cry, ugly, messy, heartbroken crying that made the elderly woman across from me offer tissues and hard candy. My phone buzzed constantly. Dominic calling. Texting. I turned it off. When I finally made it home, Dad was in the fields, and the sight of him, weathered and strong and real, made me cry harder. He saw me, dropped his tools, and just opened his arms. What happened, Clemmy? I told him everything. The deal, the marriage, the documents, the heartbreak. All of it. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then, do you love him? That's not the point, Dad. That's the only point. He pulled back to look at me. Your mother, God rest her, she didn't trust me at first either. Thought I was just some farm boy trying to win a bet with his friends. Took me 3 months to convince her I was serious. This is different. Is it? He smiled sadly. Sounds to me like a man who's used to playing chess suddenly found someone who makes him want to play checkers. That's scary. Makes you fall back on what you know. He used me. Maybe. Or maybe he started with a plan and then fell in love somewhere along the way. And that terrified him so much he sabotaged himself. Dad squeezed my shoulder. I'm not saying what he did was right. But I am saying that sometimes the best things in life start messy. What if you're wrong? What if he never really cared? Then you come home, and we figure it out together. We always do. He looked toward the fields, our fields, for however long we had them. But Clemmy, if there's even a chance he loves you back, don't you think he deserves the chance to say so? I didn't have an answer. That night, lying in my childhood bed, staring at the ceiling covered in glow-in-the-dark stars I'd put up when I was 10, I thought about Dominic, about the man behind the mask, about warm milk and dancing and the way he'd kissed me like I was precious, about the fact that I'd walked away before he could explain. My phone, charged but still silent, sat on the nightstand. No more calls, no more texts. Maybe that was my answer. Maybe he'd realized I was right, that it was all just business, and now that I'd broken the contract, he could move on to someone easier, someone who fit. Or maybe, and this thought hurt more, maybe I'd hurt him as badly as he'd hurt me, and he was doing what I'd done, putting up walls and pushing away the one person who'd gotten too close. Either way, it was over. Except my heart didn't believe that. My heart kept insisting that somewhere in that penthouse, there was a man who loved me back, who was probably just as scared and confused and heartbroken as I was. But was I brave enough to find out? Dominic Blackwell showed up at my father's farm 3 days later, and it was the most spectacular disaster I'd ever witnessed. I was in the strawberry patch, Mom's patch, pulling weeds and trying not to think about gray eyes and devastating smiles, when I heard the commotion. Car doors slamming. Dad's voice raised in surprise, and then another voice that made my heart stop. I need to see her. Please. I stood up so fast I got dizzy. Through the strawberry plants, I could see Dominic standing in our driveway in a 3-piece suit that probably cost more than our monthly expenses, looking completely out of place and absolutely determined. Son, I don't think that's a good idea, Dad was saying. She's been through enough. I know I hurt her, but I need to fix this. Dominic ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as his tell when he was nervous. I love her, sir, and I was too much of a coward to say it when it mattered. My breath caught. That's so? Dad crossed his arms, going into full protective father mode. Because from where I'm standing, you look like a man who treats people like business deals. You're right. That's exactly what I did. Dominic's voice cracked. But she changed me. She walked into my office with mud on her boots and fire in her eyes, and she made me want to be better. Made me remember what it feels like to be human instead of just successful. He looked around at the farm, our shabby, beautiful, struggling farm. I've spent my entire life building walls and making strategic decisions. And then I met your daughter, and she knocked down every single wall I had. It terrified me. So you pushed her away. So I didn't fight hard enough to make her stay. Dominic pulled something from his pocket. Papers. These are the deed and title to your property. Transferred back to you, free and clear. No liens, no loans, nothing. It's yours. He held them out to Dad. I also set up a trust fund that will cover operational costs for the next 10 years, plus money for repairs, equipment, whatever you need. Dad stared at the papers like they might bite him. Why would you do that? Because Clementine was willing to sacrifice everything for this place. For you. That kind of love. That kind of loyalty. It's worth more than any resort I could build. Dominic's voice went soft. And because I need her to know that I'm not the man who makes everything a transaction. I'm trying to be the man she believed I could be. I couldn't stay hidden anymore. I stood up, brushing dirt from my jeans, and stepped out from behind the strawberry plants. Dominic's eyes found mine immediately, and the look on his face, desperate, hopeful, terrified, made my chest ache. That's a nice speech, I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. But words are easy, Dominic. You're good at words, good at strategies. I know. He took a step toward me, then stopped, like he was afraid I'd bolt. That's why I'm not asking you to trust my words. I'm asking you to look at my actions. He gestured to the papers Dad was still holding. The farm is yours. No conditions, no contracts. Even if you never speak to me again, it's yours. Why? Because you were right about everything. I did research you. I did identify you as a convenient solution. But somewhere between the warm milk and the dancing lessons, and the way you called me an asshole at dinner, it stopped being about the inheritance or the deal or anything except you. He moved closer, and I could see the exhaustion in his face, the shadows under his eyes. I fell in love with you, Clementine. Not the polished version Miranda created, but you, the woman who wears farmer's market t-shirts to bed and can't dance and says exactly what she's thinking even when it's inconvenient. You hurt me, I said, and my voice did shake this time. You made me feel like I was just another acquisition. I know. And I will spend the rest of my life making up for that if you let me. He was close enough now that I could see the desperation in his gray eyes. But I need you to understand something. Yes, I'm calculating. Yes, I'm strategic. Yes, I research and plan and try to control outcomes. That's how I survived in a world that eats people like me alive. He took a shaky breath. But with you? I don't want to strategize. I don't want to plan. I just want to love you. Messy and imperfect and completely terrifying as that is. Tears were streaming down my face now. How do I know you mean it? How do I know this isn't just another play? Because I'm standing in a strawberry field in a Tom Ford suit, begging a woman who owns exactly one dress to give me another chance. His smile was crooked, vulnerable. I've never begged for anything in my life, Clementine, but I'm begging now. Please, let me prove that I can be the man you deserve. And what about your world? Your life in Manhattan? I don't fit there, Dominic. You said it yourself. I can't dance. I don't know which fork to use. Then we'll change the world. He reached for my hand, and I let him take it. I'll move the company headquarters upstate. I'll learn about farming. I'll figure out how to exist in a world that's not built on transactions and power plays. His thumb brushed across my knuckles. Or we'll split our time, city and country. Or we'll figure out something completely different. I don't care, as long as I'm with you. You'd really leave Manhattan? Your penthouse? I'd leave everything. His voice was fierce now. Don't you get it? You're not the one who doesn't fit in my world. My world doesn't fit anymore because you're not in it. I looked at Dad, who was watching with suspiciously bright eyes. He nodded once. Permission, or maybe encouragement. You really love me? I asked Dominic. Even though I'm stubborn and impulsive and I ruined your expensive carpet with my muddy boots. Especially because of all that. He pulled me closer. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You see through all my bullshit and call me out on it. You're the most infuriating, incredible, beautiful person I've ever met. His hand came up to cup my face. And I was an idiot for not saying this 3 days ago. I love you, Clementine Novak. Not because you're convenient or because you solve a problem, but because you made me remember what it feels like to be alive. You're still kind of an asshole, I said, but I was smiling through my tears. I know, but I'm your asshole. He leaned his forehead against mine. If you'll still have me. I thought about everything, the fear, the hurt, the betrayal. But I also thought about warm milk and dancing lessons and the way he'd defended me at the gala. About the man behind the walls, the one who kept his grandfather's broken watch and knew how to make me smile. The contract is void, I said. If we do this, we do it for real. No lawyers, no expiration date, no prenups. Agreed. And you have to learn to cook. I'm not living off restaurant food for the rest of my life. I'll take lessons. And we split our time, city and country. I'm not giving up the farm, but I'm not asking you to give up everything either. Done. His smile was growing. Is that a yes? That's maybe if you kiss me right now and make it good. He laughed, that real, full laugh I loved, and kissed me. Right there in the strawberry patch where my mother used to work, with dirt under my fingernails and tears on my face, Dominic Blackwell kissed me like I was the only thing that mattered in the entire world. And maybe, just maybe, I was. When we finally broke apart, Dad was wiping his eyes and trying to pretend he wasn't. Does this mean I need to get a suit for a wedding? He called out. Dominic looked at me, one eyebrow raised. Well, are you asking? I already asked once. Didn't work out so well. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his grandmother's ring, the one I'd left on the penthouse counter when I'd fled. But I'm asking again, for real this time. No contracts, no conditions, no expiration date. He took my hand. Clementine Novak, will you marry me? Not because it's convenient or strategic, but because I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. I looked at the ring, then at him. This complicated, infuriating, wonderful man who'd somehow become my everything. Yes, I said. Yes, you ridiculous, overdressed, formerly cruel billionaire. I'll marry you. The ring slid onto my finger like it had always belonged there. And as Dominic kissed me again, I heard Dad cheering, and I felt something that had been broken inside me click back into place. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined when I'd walked into his office with my desperate proposal. It was so much better. 2 years later, I woke up to the smell of burning pancakes and smiled before I even opened my eyes. I can smell the smoke from here, I called out, stretching in our bed, the one we'd picked out together, not too soft, not too firm, perfect for both the farm girl and the former billionaire bachelor. They're not burned, they're caramelized, Dominic yelled back from the kitchen. That's the same thing. It's completely different. I padded barefoot down the hallway of our farmhouse, the renovated, expanded, absolutely beautiful farmhouse that somehow managed to blend rustic charm with just enough modern luxury to keep Dominic from going completely feral. The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating framed photos on the walls. Our wedding day in the strawberry fields, Dominic in overalls learning to drive the tractor, me at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new Blackwell Industries upstate headquarters, both of us covered in flour during our disastrous first attempt at baking together. In the kitchen, my husband, still weird and wonderful to think that word, stood at the stove in pajama pants and a t-shirt that said, "I'm with Farmer," with an arrow pointing to where I usually stood. His hair was messed up, there was flour on his face, and he was frowning at a skillet like it had personally insulted him. "Need help?" I asked, wrapping my arms around him from behind. "I've got this under control. The smoke alarm says otherwise." "The smoke alarm is a liar." But he turned in my arms and kissed me, tasting like coffee and domesticity. "Good morning, Mrs. Blackwell." "Good morning, Mr. Novak Blackwell." We'd hyphenated, much to the horror of Manhattan society and the delight of everyone who mattered. "How bad is it? Scale of 1 to 10? Honestly, 7. Maybe 8. He grimaced. "I'm better at making reservations than making breakfast. Good thing I love you anyway." I rescued the pancakes, they were definitely burned, and started fresh ones while Dominic made coffee. This was our Saturday routine. Weekends at the farm, weekdays split between the new headquarters in Kingston, and occasional trips to Manhattan for meetings. It worked. Somehow, impossibly, we'd made it work. "Dad's coming over later," I said, flipping a pancake. "Something about the new irrigation system." "Which is working perfectly, thanks to the engineers I hired." "Which you hired after I told you the old system was dying." "Which I hired because I listened to my brilliant wife." He handed me coffee, fixed exactly how I liked it. "Speaking of which, I have something to show you later." "Good something or bad something?" "Good. Great, actually." He smiled, that secret smile that meant he was planning something. 2 years in, and I'd learned all his tells. But it can wait until after breakfast. We ate on the porch, the wraparound porch Dominic had insisted on adding during renovations, watching the sun rise over the fields. Our fields. The strawberries were thriving, the new crops we'd diversified into were doing well, and Dad had hired 3 full-time workers to help manage everything. The farm wasn't just surviving anymore, it was flourishing. "Remember when you couldn't tell a strawberry plant from a weed?" I teased. "I've learned." He pointed to the eastern field. "Those are the new organic strawberries. Western field is rotating with winter wheat. The greenhouse has the experimental hydroponic system. Show off. You love it." I did. I loved watching this man who'd once only known concrete and steel learn to appreciate dirt under his fingernails. He'd never be a natural farmer. Last week, he'd tried to organize the chickens by productivity level. But he tried. God, he tried so hard. "What about you?" he asked. "Ready for the charity board meeting Monday?" "As ready as I'll ever be." I'd taken a position on the board of the Ashford Foundation, the same charity gala where we'd had our first public appearance. Turned out I was pretty good at fundraising when I actually believed in the cause. Though I still think it's hilarious that Vivian has to work with me. She's been surprisingly professional, because I made her cry during that budget meeting. You made excellent points about fund allocation. I made her cry, Dominic. He grinned. It was impressive. After breakfast, he led me to his study, the one room in the farmhouse that was pure Dominic, all dark wood and leather and organized chaos. On his desk were blueprints. "What's this?" I asked. "Remember how you mentioned wanting to expand the farm's retail presence?" He unrolled the plans. "I've been working with architects. A farm store, right at the edge of the property. Local produce, handmade goods, maybe a small cafe. Tourist attraction, community hub, revenue stream." He looked at me nervously. "What do you think?" I stared at the detailed plans, the careful thought he'd put into every aspect, the way he'd incorporated my offhand comments from months ago into something real and tangible. "I think," I said slowly, "that you've become quite the farmer, Mr. Novak Blackwell." His smile could have lit up the entire state. "Dad would be proud." "Your grandfather?" "Yeah." He touched the pocket watch that now sat on his desk in a place of honor. "He always said business was about building something that lasts, not just making money. I think he'd like what we're building here." "I know he would." I pulled him down for a kiss. So would my mom. We stood there for a moment, wrapped in each other, and I thought about that terrified girl who'd walked into a Manhattan office building 2 years ago. She'd been so desperate, so scared, so certain she had to sacrifice herself to save everything she loved. She'd had no idea she was about to find everything she needed. "Oh," Dominic pulled back suddenly. "I almost forgot. Miranda called." "How is she?" "Thriving. Her new consulting business is booming." After our wedding, Miranda had quit working for Dominic and started her own company, specializing in hopeless cases who need polish and aren't complete disasters, unlike some people I could mention. Her words. "She wants to know if we're coming to her wedding." The Ice Queen is getting married? To a farmer from Vermont. He laughed at my expression. "I know. She met him at our wedding, apparently. Said something about how, if Dominic Blackwell could learn to be human, she could try it too. We're basically Cupid. We're a menace." He kissed my nose. "But I wouldn't change a thing." We spent the afternoon working the fields with Dad, who'd regained 20 pounds and 10 years since the stress of losing the farm had lifted. He and Dominic had become unlikely friends, bonding over terrible jokes and Sunday football. Watching them laugh together, I felt something settle in my chest, a contentment so complete it was almost scary. That evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Dominic said, "I have something else to tell you. More blueprints. Better." He took my hand. "I've been talking to the board. They've agreed to implement the Rural Outreach Program, offering microloans and business consulting to small farms in danger of foreclosure. Everything we went through, everything we learned, we can use it to help other families." Tears pricked my eyes. "Dominic, it was your idea. From months ago, remember? You said if we could make it work, others should have the same chance." He squeezed my hand. "I'm calling it the Novak Initiative. You're naming it after me? After us. After what we built together." He turned to face me fully. "Clementine, you changed my entire life. Before you, I was just accumulating. Money, power, victories. But you taught me the difference between success and significance. You showed me that the best things in life can't be strategized or controlled. Are you getting sentimental on me?" "Maybe." He smiled. "I'm allowed. I'm reformed. Mostly reformed. I'll take mostly." He pulled me closer. "Though I should warn you, I've been doing some calculations." "Uh-oh." "Nothing sinister. Just math." His hand moved to rest on my stomach. "Based on our current trajectory and certain activities over the past few months, I estimate that by this time next year we might need to add a nursery to the renovation plans." My breath caught. "Are you asking?" "I'm saying that if you wanted to start thinking about expanding our family, I'd be..." He paused, vulnerable. "I'd be honored. Terrified, but honored." I thought about mini Dominics running through the strawberry fields, about teaching them to farm and laugh and love without walls, about the family we could build in this place where his world and mine had collided and somehow created something better than either of us had imagined. "I think," I said carefully, "that we should probably practice our parenting skills on the chickens a bit longer. You did try to give them performance reviews." He laughed, that full, genuine laugh that still made my heart skip. "Fair point. But after that?" I took his hand, laced our fingers together. "After that, I think we should fill this farmhouse with babies who have your eyes and my stubborn streak. God help us all." "Yeah." I kissed him as the sun set over our fields, painting everything gold. God help us all. Later that night, lying in bed with Dominic's arms around me, I thought about the question that had haunted me during those first terrifying weeks. What if I hadn't accepted? What if I'd walked away from his cruel proposition? What if I'd been too proud to make that desperate deal? What if I'd chosen safety over the terrifying unknown? I would have lost everything. Not just the farm, but this, the love, the partnership, the life we'd built together. I would have missed out on watching a calculating businessman learn to tend strawberries. I would have never known what it felt like to be loved by someone who'd spent his entire life building walls, only to tear them all down for me. "What are you thinking about?" Dominic murmured sleepily. "About mud on expensive carpets," I said. "What?" About a girl who walked into an office building with nothing to lose and everything to gain. I turned in his arms to face him. About saying yes when I probably should have said no. Second thoughts? Not even close. I kissed him softly. Best decision I ever made. Even when I'm terrible at pancakes? Especially then. He smiled against my lips. I love you, Clementine Novak Blackwell. I love you too, you reformed asshole. Outside, the farm settled into night. Crickets singing, cows lowing softly, the wind rustling through the strawberry fields where my mother once worked, and where I'd found my future. Inside, wrapped in the arms of a man who'd learned to love as fiercely as he'd once built empires, I fell asleep thinking about muddy boots and million-dollar deals and the beautiful, messy, perfect life we'd created. And somewhere in the darkness, I could have sworn I heard my mother's laugh, carried on the wind, proud and happy, and telling me she'd known all along. Everything was exactly as it should be. The end.